What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today is November 6th of 2022. In today's video, we're going to talk about a couple of things that happened yesterday, both heavily connected. We'll start with the 2022 World Series, which ended last night in Game 6 in Houston, Texas, where the Astros clinched the World Series over the Philadelphia Phillies, 4-2, with a score of 4-1. On the same date, former child pop star Aaron Carter, whose life has publicly derailed over the last decade or two, was found dead in his bathtub, allegedly, at the age of 34. In this video, we're going to explore the language of numerology and Gematria. Gematria, also pronounced Gematria, as this is geometry within the language, is a well-hidden component of numerology that sits right underneath the letters in our language. The English ordinal cipher, the simplest, most common method we use, simply numbers the alphabet 1 through 26 with the associated reduction or Pythagorean method, dropping each double-digit number to a single digit prior to adding it to the equation. There are several other forms of gematria which we'll tap into throughout this video, but those are the two primary ones. And using that method, we see here that the phrase moon landing has a value of 118 in the standard alphabetic order. This year's World Series, won by the Houston Astros, was the 118th edition of the Fall Classic. Last week on my channel, I talked about how this year's World Series was a ritual connected to the moon landing, which was conducted by NASA back in 1969 through the Apollo 11 mission. The moon landing allegedly occurred on the date July 20th of 1969. This is a date that has what I call primary numerology of 115 by adding the digits 7 plus 20 plus 19 plus 69. The World Series, the 118th edition, ended on the peculiarly late date of November 5th, written 11/5. And of course, this year's World Series is later than normal because the season began with a strike that delayed the start of the season by a week. The number 115 is symbolic of something else in this language of gematria. When you flip the order of the alphabet around so that Z is 1, Y is 2 through A is 26, the word killing has this value of 115. In the highly significant Latin or Jewish method, seen on the left side of your screen, the word killing sums to 115 there as well. This brings us to the story of Aaron Carter, who was said to have been found dead in his bathtub. Notice how the word bathtub sums to 115 in reverse. This reminded us of another famous singer who was also found dead in a bathtub back in the year 2012. Pop star Whitney Houston, who shares a last name with the city that won the World Series on the same date that Aaron Carter died. Whitney's full name was Whitney Elizabeth Houston. Using the standard reduction or Pythagorean method, Whitney Elizabeth Houston sums to 115, just like yesterday's date, November 5th. Carter died at the age of 34, and using the standard alphabetic order, the name Whitney Elizabeth Houston sums to 304. In numerology, zeros are ignored in the result, so this number here represents the number 34. Whitney Houston had one daughter with Bobby Brown, and they named her Bobby Christina Brown. She was also found unconscious in a bathtub back in 2015 and would go on to die several months later after several months in a coma. And notice Bobby Brown's birthday was also March 4th, the date written 3/4. In Gematria, this is a number we commonly see coded into stories about death, as the word murder has Gematria of 34 in reduction. We'll also take a look at this 38 at length later on. But think about the number 34 and how it connects to the Astros. This year's season for the Houston Astros was the 61st season in their history, a number we'll talk about more in a sec. "34 sums to 61 in reduction, and 56 in reverse reduction. And it just so happens that the first time the Astros won the World Series, it was in their 56th season. So we saw the gematria of Whitney Houston and how this was so significant. The 34 and 115, ordinal and reduction. Well, when you add the numbers 304 and 115, you get a sum of 419. Now, the reason I point this number out, 419, is because today, a day after his death, Aaron Carter would have turned 419 months old. 419 is what we call a prime number, divisible only by 1 and itself. Notice here it's the 81st prime number, and in gematria, the name Aaron Charles Carter sums to 81. Aaron Carter was the younger brother of Backstreet Boy Nick Carter, and Nick Carter's full name was Nicholas Gene Carter, which also sums to 81 in reduction. But the next big part of this video, I want to talk about the number 666 and how this highly significant occult number was coded extremely into the World Series. And again, this is all due to NASA. Now, NASA is headquartered in Houston, which is, of course, where the Astros play baseball, their home games. And the reason they're named the Astros is after a NASA facility. That would be the Johnson Space Center in Houston. And that's named after the 36th president, LBJ. Now, this stands out because the number 666 is what we call a triangular number. So if you add every number, 1 through 36, you get a sum of 666, which of course has 3 sixes in it. LBJ, the 36th president, whom the Space Center was named after in Houston. Well, if you take the full name of NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, you get a reverse value of 666. Before I talk more about that number, also notice the 441. The phrase pop star equals 441, and on the same date as this Astros ritual, Aaron Carter died. And notice how Aaron Carter also has this 441 value in Latin. So NASA's full name equals 666. Notice how the phrase fake moon landing equals 666 in satanic gematria. This is a cipher that's constructed around the number 666, as the first letter, A, is worth 36. Satanic gematria sums to 666 in this method. In the Fibonacci method, the word Apollo equals 666. And it was the Apollo 11 spacecraft that the first moon landing occurred on. And think about how space travel has been back in the news this week. On November 1st, SpaceX launched the Falcon Heavy rocket, the world's most powerful one, after a 3-year hiatus. And you may recall that the Falcon Heavy rocket had its first launch in February of 2018, which was just a few months after the Astros won their first World Series. Remember, this rocket, the Falcon Heavy rocket, took off on the same day that rapper Takeoff was killed in the city of Houston. And think about the name Takeoff in relation to rockets. This rapper had one solo album, and the name of it was The Last Rocket. And of course, he dies in Houston, whose team is named the Rockets. See my last super stream, where I talk about the death of Takeoff. But this isn't the only time Elon Musk has been in the news. Now, Elon Musk owns SpaceX, which is kind of like the new NASA. I mean, NASA still exists, but it's SpaceX that's surpassed it in terms of commercial space travel. Well, also this week, Elon Musk finalized his purchase of Twitter. Notice how old Twitter was when the World Series started, measuring from March 21st, 2006 to Game 1 of the World Series, which was the day after Elon finalized his deal. Twitter turned 6,066 days old. Now, another thing that stands out about all of this is that last year, on November 5th, which is the same day that this year that the Astros won the World Series, there was a crowd crush at a festival called Astroworld, which was named after an album from rapper Travis Scott. Consider how crowd crushes have been back in the news this past week. Last week, there was a big crowd crush in the city of Seoul, South Korea, on Halloween, which is also known as All Souls Day. And on the 1-year anniversary of this crowd crush in Houston, Houston wins the World Series. But check out how the number 666 was coded into this crowd crush last year. We start with rapper Travis Scott, whose real name has Gematria of 1666 and 3999, which has an upside down 666. This standard cipher of Gematria, similar to the ancient Greek and Hebrew charts, 1 through 9, 10 through 90, and then 100 through 800. Very traditional Gematria there. So he's got double Gematria of 666, and his birthday is April 30th, which is the same day in history that the Church of Satan was founded. The Church of Satan celebrates its anniversary on April 30th. And look how old the Church of Satan was on the date of the Astroworld crowd crush. 666 months and 6 days. Meanwhile, Travis Scott was 366 months and 6 days old. Measuring from the opening of the Houston Astrodome to the Astroworld crowd crush was a span of 20,666 days. You may recall that after that crowd crush, there was a news story that told us that dead bodies were referred to as Smurfs, per the company handbook at Live Nation. And if you measure from the date that the Smurfs first debuted to the date of the crowd crush, it was 14,666 days. So if you measure from the date that the Astroworld album came out, which again is the album that the festival was named after, this album came out on August 3rd of 2018. Measuring from that date to yesterday, the Houston Astros played a total of 666 games, including the playoffs. Notice how the moon has matching Gematria with 666. That would be the number 283. 283 is the 61st prime number. And again, this was the Houston Astros' 61st season in Major League Baseball. Now, when we talk about the number 666, this is heavily connected to the number 111. And this is because of the language of Gematria. Consider how any value that sums to 111 in either ordinal method will also sum to 666 in either Sumerian method. The word astrology summing to 666, calculation 666. This is all to do with moon and sun, which have combined Gematria of 666. Well, when the Astros won the World Series for the first time, it was on the date November 1st in 2017. And they won the World Series in Los Angeles against the Dodgers near Hollywood. And this is all a play on the fact that the moon landings were faked, similar to what Hollywood does. I think it was a Red Hot Chili Peppers song who says space is the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. And check this out. If you write out the number 666, you get Gematria of 275 ordinal. Now, 275 days after the Astros won the World Series, they played their 111th game of the year. And they played the Los Angeles Dodgers, once again in Hollywood. And think about how rare that is, because this was an interleague game. So for the Houston Astros to go back to Hollywood, that was only happening roughly once every, 7 or 8 years? And again, this was the 111th game for both teams. Now, this game was on the same date that Astroworld was released, August 3rd of 2018. And think about the date, 3/8/2018. The word moon sums to 38 and 218 in Hebrew Gematria. In English, the word moon sums to 21 in reduction. And check out the score of this game on the same date as Astroworld's release. It was 2-1 Astros. Moon equals 21 and 210. The winning pitcher for this game was Justin Verlander. Notice how the name Justin equals 21. This was Verlander's 210th career victory, and he picked the victory up 201 days before his 36th birthday. The moon equals 36. But what's up with this 201? The phrase 666 equals 201. And again, the 36th triangular number, 666. So one thing I noticed about Aaron Carter is that he's got this middle name Charles. So his name is Aaron Charles Carter. This reminded me of the two-time reigning NFL MVP, whose name is also Aaron Charles Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers' full name also has this 201 value, part of this 666 code. His name also has an upside-down 666 in square numbers. Well, check out Aaron Rodgers' career winning percentage. Whether or not you include the one tie from his career, his winning percentage is currently .666. He's won 2/3 of his decisions. Notice how he's also throwing for 6.6 yards per attempt this year. His completion percentage this season is 66%. And he's also got exactly 1,800 passing yards. Well, an 18 is, of course, the sum of 6 plus 6 plus 6. So, Charles is the name of the new king of the United Kingdom. And this brings us to the next part of the riddle. Back in January, I did a video on the death of the son of Regina King. And this happened the same day that Aaron Rodgers was knocked out of the playoffs. Regina King was an actress from the old television series 227. And 227 is a very significant number connected to pi, as this post shows. Aaron Rodgers, the king of the regular season, connected to the death of a family member of Regina King. And that was Rodgers' 227th career game when that happened. Now, Whitney Houston, who's also connected to all of this, she was commonly known as the Queen of Pop. She even had a song called Queen of the Night that played during the final credits of the film The Bodyguard. And Whitney Houston's middle name is Elizabeth, which of course connects to the last queen. So there's a big royalty riddle connected with the death of Aaron Carter and the end of the World Series. So measuring from the death of Whitney Houston to the death of Aaron Carter, notice how we get exactly 560 weeks. And this represents the number 56. 56 equals 118. This again being the 118th World Series. 118, a number connected to both death and homicide. The Houston Astros lost 56 games during the regular season this year, and then they lost 2 more games in the postseason, meaning they had 58 total losses this entire year. The date that they won the World Series had primary numerology of 58, and also was the date that left 56 days on the calendar. Measuring to the death of the Queen, it was 58 days. Measuring to the date that Charles was formally announced the king was 56 days. So let's look a little bit more at this Disney Channel riddle for this child pop star, Aaron Carter. First thing I wanted to point out is that the World Series ended on the 309th day of the year. Now, in numerology, this represents the number 39. Notice how the phrase pop star equals 39. Pop star also equals 33. And Aaron Carter, whose name matches pop star in Gematria, died 33 days before his birthday. When Bobby Christina Brown passed away back in 2015, that happened exactly 33 weeks after Aaron Carter's birthday. 33 is a number connected to ritual human sacrifice, as I commonly discuss. But also notice how 33 has matching 666 gematria with child pop star, both summing to 60 and 66. Whitney Houston's full name also had gematria of 317, which is the 66th prime number. Notice how she died 66 days after Aaron Carter's birthday. It was even his 24th birthday, and 2 plus 4 is 6. The name Whitney Houston on its own sums to 216. And 216 is the product of 6 times 6 times 6. If you write out 666, you get a value of 211, and Whitney Houston died on 2/11, or February 11th. Recently, I made a post on the significance of the number 666 as it pertains to Disney World. And the reason I talked about this is because there was a funnel cloud that was recently over Disney World, and it was exactly 669 months after the death of Walt Disney, who died in the year 66. And when you write out the Walt Disney Company, you get an upside-down 666 in Gematria, 90 and 99. And of course, the Disney logo has the numbers 666 coded into it. And the reason I bring this up here is because Aaron Carter was one of the most famous stars when Disney Radio first started, back in 1998. Aaron Carter had an album in 1997, and then another big one in 2000, and his music was a huge part of the beginning of Radio Disney. Now, Radio Disney just happened to cease operations last year, so I'm sure there's connections to that as well, but what I wanted to talk about is how this 666 riddle extends through the Disney Corporation. So let's look up the Walt Disney Company, which was founded way back in the year 1923. If you measure from the date that Disney was founded, so check this out, October 16th of 1923, to the death of Aaron Carter. Look at the number of days here, 36,180 days. Well, Aaron Carter's full name sums to 36 and 180. And these are the same numbers found in his brother's, Nick Carter's full name, Nicholas Gene Carter. 36 and 180. The same exact digits that show up when you measure from the founding of Disney. As far as this 18, remember this is all connected to 666, right? 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 18. 666 is the 36th triangular number. Measuring from the birthday of Whitney Houston to the birth of her daughter Bobby Brown was 10,800 days. Again, the number 18. And when Aaron Carter was 18 years old, he fell in love with a girl with the last name Brown. Look at this. Casey Brown, was it? Yeah, Casey Brown. 18-year-old singer Casey Brown. And this was right after Aaron Carter was 18 years old. I think he had just like turned 19. But she was 18 and her name was Brown. And I was like, what are the odds of this? But this whole connection to the Disney Channel is connected with the show Lizzie McGuire. Aaron Carter first appeared on the Disney Channel on the show Lizzie McGuire, which starred actress Hilary Duff. Notice how Lizzie McGuire has Gematria of 163. This is the 38th prime number, and Aaron Carter died 38 days after Hilary Duff's birthday. 38, really the ultimate number of death, killing, and murder. Carter died on a date with numerology of 38, and he was found dead in a tub, which equals 38. Measuring from the death of Bobby Christina Brown, who was also found in a tub, was a span of exactly 380 weeks. And we talked about how he's got the same names as Aaron Rodgers. Well, if you measure from Aaron Rodgers' date of birth to the date of Aaron Carter's death, you get 38 years, 338 days. And in regards to this whole thing with kings and queens, right? Well, Aaron Rodgers plays today against the Detroit Lions, and the Lions are the king of the jungle, so to speak. So I'm sure there's more to unpack in the numerology of all of this, but this has everything to do with the number 666 and the Astroworld tragedy, which occurred exactly 1 year earlier. The Astros winning the World Series in their 666th game since the release of Astroworld. Again, the number we've been teaching about space study and space travel for years. 666, all connected to NASA. Playing out once again through major professional sports, as it always does. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Please check the links down in the description below if you'd like more information on Gematria or more related decodes to what I discussed on this video. Also, if you'd like to support the work, links to my memberships page and my PayPal are also down in the description below, as beginning last month, this content is now sponsored by the viewers. So thanks to everybody who signed up so far, and more to come. We'll talk to you soon. Peace, love, God bless. See ya.